All right. Good day, everyone. This is Jason Straight with the PaaS Cloud Virtual Group. I'm here today to introduce Taiob for his presentation, Azure SQL Database, Where's My SQL Agent? Before we get going today, I just have a few announcements I want to go through. So the first announcement is that this virtual group is brought to you by Microsoft Azure. Microsoft Azure, as most of you are probably aware, helps to provide the cloud and web services that a lot of us are consuming when we're bringing our data platforms to the cloud. And they're sponsoring us to help to make sure that we can continue to help people get educated on how you can bring your data platforms to the cloud. If you are not yet a member, we do have a website for our virtual group at cloud.paas.org. It's a great place to go out and find out about upcoming sessions and get signed up for the newsletter. In regards to upcoming sessions, we have a number of sessions still currently planned out. We have a couple scheduled for next week, next Tuesday with Matthew Burrows from Microsoft, and then also some Snowflake on Azure with Brett Vanderplatz on Thursday. If you are, though, interested in speaking, I do try to do 2 sessions per week. So please just reach out to me at cloud@paas.org. Or if you'd like, you can go out to the group website and click on the link that goes for the call for speakers. Coming this fall is PaaS Summit 2020. If you hadn't heard the news yet, it is going to be a virtual PaaS Summit. So the pricing has changed a bit, but you can still get a discount on your registration by using the discount code that's there on the screen, the VGDISFKDQ. That can get you a significant discount on your registration. This virtual group is part of a number of virtual groups that PaaS helps to put together. Some of them focus on different areas of data platforms, such as database administration or data science. Others focus on either different subgroups within the PaaS community or along different languages, such as Global Spanish and Women in Technology. But they all provide various ways in which you can continue to learn about building out your data platforms. If you do have any questions throughout the session, please type them into the question panel, and then throughout the session, Taiob will open up some opportunities for those questions, and then also at the end, if there are additional questions, we'll go through those at that time. And with that, those are all my announcements. So let me make a presenter. And our session today is going to be Azure SQL Database, Where's My SQL Agent? All right, Taiob, you should have a presenter now.
Yep, thank you, Jason. I'm just gonna, okay.
Looks good.
So Jason, okay, great, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. So good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are joining, and pat yourself in the back because in these tough days, with a full-time job, attending these webinars is not easy because our home has become a school, a playground, an office, and a living space, right? So it's not easy, at least in my experience. I have 3 children. Both of us work. So, I have a very high regard for you guys that you took out your time and joining for this 1 hour to listen to me. So it's a little bit about me. I have a full-time job in an investment management firm in Boston area. I am a Microsoft Data Platform MVP. About 14 years I've been working with Microsoft Data Platform and also MongoDB for about 4 years. I'm a board member of a New England SQL Server user group in Boston area and a PaaSDB, a virtual group that I help to run. I also organize Boston SQL Saturday, and I speak in local events virtually, SQL Saturdays and Azure events. If I'm not working, mostly taking care of 3 of my children, and I'm running. Did my first marathon with Adam Mechanic a couple of years ago, and I did a bunch of half marathons. But the most important is my contact, because we have limited time. If I do not answer your question, if I was not clear, if you have any comment, feedback, you can reach out to me via my website. There is a contact, LinkedIn, Twitter, email, everything works. I can guarantee you that you will hear from me in maximum in 2 days. So now, why we'll be talking about this topic, right? I'm sure if you don't know, probably most of you know Azure SQL Database, and I'm not talking about Azure SQL running on VM, on Azure VM, and I'm also not talking about managed instance. I'm purely talking about Azure SQL Database, and Azure SQL Database doesn't have a SQL Server agent that we know of for many, many years that we were used to using on-prem. And when managed instance was in preview, a lot of people said, you know, why bother with Azure SQL Database, right? If I can go to managed instance, get similar feature what I have on-prem, why should I even bother about, trying to learn how to mimic my Azure, SQL Server agent in Azure SQL Database? So I asked a couple of Microsoft folks, and I looked at it myself, and which is true even today. If you look at the pricing between managed instance and Azure SQL Database, a managed instance to get similar compute, you will be paying double the money. So there is a need in, for managed instance for certain, for different reason. But if your application is running, depending on a single database, or if today you have multiple databases that you can consolidate to one, your best option is probably, unless you have unlimited budget, to use Azure SQL Database. Now, we know that Microsoft is going to take care of a lot of things for us, right? Installation, patching, a lot of those. But we still have a lot of things that we, as a data professional, we still have to take care of it. Update stats, long-running queries. If someone is blocked, right? Looking at word stats, looking at DMV infos. Sometimes we might have to purge old data, right? Or maybe we cannot do partitioning for for X number of reason. Index maintenance, I have it there, but whether you do it or not, that can be a different topic. People have a strong opinion for both. I'm not going to get there, but the point I'm trying to make, we still have stuff as a data professional that we need to help, for the application team or for the app support, or whatever team you call in your company, right? That we need to track. For that, we need to somehow mimic the function of a SQL Server agent when it comes to Azure SQL Database. And that's the whole goal of this talk. One thing you might notice that, and some of you might be wondering why I do not have backup, right? Because SQL Server agent is heavily used to schedule our backups. So in case if you didn't know, in Azure SQL Database, you do not have to take manual backup. Actually, you cannot take a backup. You can create DACpack or backpack, which is really not backup, but you can use those kind of restore to a similar state. Backups are automatically taken. So point in time backups, you can get up to 35 days, and you can also set up long-term retention for your backups for 10 years. If you're interested, look up books online, and if you still have questions, reach out to me. I can help you out with those. So that's why you do not see the backup in this slide. So what can we do? In my personal case, in my current company, we are in a hybrid mode. And when I say hybrid means we still probably, I'm not going to give you a number. Most of our staff is still sitting in a physical data center. And actually, I'm giving this talk from a data center today. I had to, work from here. But we are moving to cloud. So we have a lot of stuff on-prem in physical data center, but we have also a bunch of things in cloud. And even on the user groups, and when I'm talking to my peers, a lot of people tell me that they're in the same situation, right? Very few people are at this point are 100% in cloud or 100% on-prem. Maybe there can be many people 100% on-prem, but there are very few people that are 100% in the cloud. So the reason I put this slide is we can still take advantage of some of the stuff we have on-prem to control stuff that's in the cloud. And I'll show you some of this. And that's why I said, you can have choices. Either you use on-prem, you can use cloud, you can use both, you can use hybrid mode. So our goal is, to look at a couple of these options, look at pros and cons, then you guys can decide what is good for you. So on-prem, what can we do? We can use link server. We can create link server for Azure SQL Database, not for Azure SQL Server, because Azure SQL Server is a logical container. You really interact directly with the database. So you can use link server. You can use PowerShell, and you can write PowerShell code functions, and you can run those against your Azure SQL database from on-prem. Now, if you have to schedule something, right, that's what SQL Server Agent was good, that I can run something at the exact time, exact hour, minute, second that I want at frequent interval every time. What can I do, right, to schedule those? I can use Windows Scheduler, or there are third-party scheduler that you might have, like Tidal is one of those that I'm familiar with, that I use heavily. If you have those scheduler on-prem, you can actually write PowerShell functions, and you can schedule those from one of those scheduler and control your resources in cloud. And then the next bullet point that I have is Azure IIS. What I mean by that, so say you do not have stuff on-prem, and you do not have good connectivity from on-prem to your cloud resources. What can you do? You can spin up a VM. You can use that as a Windows VM, and you can use the Windows scheduler with PowerShell and do what I said. You can do it from on-prem. There's another option that I've seen people are doing. If you can spin up Azure VM, you can install SQL Server, and which will act like a SQL Server on-prem, and you can use that agent with link server to control your resources in cloud. But if you are in a shop that you are 100% in cloud, and you do not have anything on-prem, and if you're like me that you do not want to spin up Azure VM, because that's our last option, you want to go with the PaaS model, and then we'll talk about a couple of other options, Azure Automation, Azure Function, Elastic Job Agents, and Web Jobs. Web Jobs, I put it there. There are very few people that I know of use Web Jobs to control your, to mimic your Azure SQL Server Agent functions. Functionality, but you can do that. So I'm not going to talk about that. I have some resources at the end. You can look it up, but I'll talk about the first three in details. If you really want to get the feeling of SQL Server Agent on-prem, I think the closest I can say is Elastic Job Agent, which you look at. But the major drawback of that is it doesn't support PowerShell. I hope one day we see that. That's my holdback, is that because a lot of things that I do, even on-prem, I'll call a PowerShell from a SQL Server Agent job. It will look through all my instances or a subset, either prod, non-prod, UAT, and it will do different stuff that I want it to do. If Elastic Job Agents can support PowerShell, I think a lot of people will use it, because, and I'll show you, why I'm saying that. So the first one is a link server, right? So you have your on-prem SQL Server, you see in the middle. You can have link server to your Windows Azure SQL databases, and then you can do anything you want. And also from on-prem SQL Server, of course, you can connect to Excel, you can connect to third-party databases. Those are all possible, but those were there before. But the top arrows is pointing to your cloud, your cloud resources. I talked about PowerShell and Windows Scheduler, which can be very powerful, and I'll show you an example of that. I put some link there. One link is where I got some of the pictures, but the second link you see in this slide will actually talk about this model, how you can implement it in a larger scale. Azure Automation. So Azure Automation is itself a service in Azure. It is totally separate from Azure SQL Server or Azure SQL Database. It has nothing to do with Azure SQL Database or Azure SQL Server. And the core of Azure Automation is a runbook. And what's a runbook? A runbook is a piece of code in PowerShell or in Python. And runbook itself can be a talk for an hour and a half, because there are different kind of runbooks. There are graphical ones, like if you have worked with SSIS in Visual Studio, like you can drag and drop stuff and you can connect those together with arrows. You can have that kind of feeling with a runbook. You can draw those and then you can put code inside that. You can also do just pure PowerShell code or Python. And there are a major difference between a PowerShell runbook and a PowerShell workflow runbook. And I'm not going to go into details, but I'll make you aware of this. If you are iterating through large set of Azure SQL database, you probably want to use workflow because the workflows can save its state. So if it fails, it knows that where it fails and you can restart from there, it will remember. If you are using just a run book, it doesn't have a state. It doesn't know where it fails. So you have to start from the beginning. So there are some difference. These are some of the differences between the two, just so you know. And I will show you an example of a workflow. You can schedule those. They have common resources. So within your Azure Automation Service, I can have my connection strings, I can have credentials, I can have certificates, and I can reuse those in multiple runbooks. Source control is integrated within the UI. You can have a run as account, and that account, if you give the account proper privilege, it can go and do stuff against all your Azure SQL databases. You can also authenticate runbook against other cloud provider like Amazon Web Services. So if you have a resource in Amazon, you can control that. You can do stuff against that by running a runbook from Azure. And you do not have to start from scratch. The one that I'll show you today, there are runbook galleries that you can download. And of course, you do not want to just download and run it against your production. You want to test it. But there are available. There are hundreds of runbooks that people wrote that you can take it there and get a head start from that. So why would I use the runbook? Number one is save time. It can, there are so many available. I can just download and get a head start. So it can save some of my time. And you can use both Windows and Linux systems and hybrid environments. You can even control your on-prem resources by doing a run, by having runbook run from Azure, and you can control your on-prem SQL servers, either it's Windows or Linux. Yeah, so these are some of the advantages. I put a link there. If you guys want to read details about that, you can go there. And the last one is I talked about is Azure Function. And I was not thrilled with the function at the beginning, but last year during the I think it was in the build or one of the conferences that ran parallel with the Azure with our PaaS conference last year, they announced that functions will support PowerShell. So that was a huge change. And other one was the premium service. What does that mean? Now I can pre-allocate my compute. So if I have mission critical jobs that need to run at certain time and in a certain minute, I can pre-allocate compute. So once I submit my function to run, I do not have to wait for the compute to get allocated. That was a problem for many people because I might need something that I want to run exactly at 10:05, but if I schedule my function at 10:05 to get on the compute, I might have to wait a couple of seconds or for a minute, which didn't work for a lot of people. And it was limited to 10-minute maximum runtime, so all those went away with the with the new offerings. So that made it a lot easier for us to use it. Again, you can integrate with the source control, and this is also a separate function, so it has nothing to do with Azure SQL Database. and we look at that. It's a separate service that you spin up, and you can use, you have two different run model, and then you can write your own functions using different kind of, language that you are familiar with. But I'm excited that it supports PowerShell. You can schedule those, and you can do whatever you want to against your Azure SQL databases. These are some of the new functionality that was announced in Ignite in last year. Sorry, not in the build, during the Ignite conference. So some of the highlights I put there, I think, which made it a lot easier for us, those who are working with Azure SQL Database, to use it more. Elastic Database Jobs. So what it does, actually, it use one of the Azure SQL Database, and doesn't matter what name you give it, it actually converted to kind of a MSDB that we are used to on-prem. So once you turn on this service, and you point it to an empty database, it will deploy a bunch of system tables and a lot of store procs. And I'll show you some of those. They exactly look like what we have in our MSDB today. So once you have it there, you can create job, and you also have something called a group. That's your target, and you can schedule those jobs against those targets. Today, it only supports T-SQL. You can run multiple jobs in parallel. You can target those to run against many assets, and they will run in parallel. And when I say, assets, I mean like it can be one or more individual database, it can be a bunch of servers, it can be elastic pool, or it can be a shared map. We're not going to talk about shared map, but you can look it up. Or if you are using shared map, you can use this feature for your maintenance purpose against those. So here you can see it's a job DB, and then you create a login, you create credentials, and you give those credentials privilege to your targets against your targets. So if your jobs are only doing reads, you're collecting metadata or you're collecting some stats, you only give it read permission. If you want it to write, you have to give it write permission. If you want to do other stuff, you have to give the proper permission to those credentials. And there are mainly 4 elements. Elastic Job Agent is a service that you turn on. Your job database is going to have your metadata about your job. You schedule your target. Your target group is where you want your jobs to run against, and the job itself is the job. You can have multiple job steps. And these are a bunch of examples. I give the URL that I just copy pasted the picture basically from there. It's just showing you different combinations of targets that what it can be. I'm not going to read those. They're pretty self-explanatory, but if you go to that URL, you can see more details. These are again some of the pictures. So you can see some of the store procs like SP add job, SP delete job, SP start job, stop job. We are already familiar. They're all in MSDB today. And look at some of the tables and views names. And those are the ones get created once you turn on this service. That's why I said, this is the one service that can that will, the look and feel is pretty similar to what we are used to today in MSDB. So that's enough for talking. I have no more slide. I'll go back to demo, but before I go to demo, so I don't have to come back. Actually, no, I'll come back for wrap up. For my demo, I'm using SQL Server 2019 CU4. I'm using Management Studio 18.5. I'm using the latest VS Code, I think it's 1.43 something, and I'm using PowerShell Core 7.1. I just want to make it clear, just to in case, if you're trying to run my code as is, if you don't have this version, I don't know what error messages you'll get into, but you can always come back, send me a note and I can look at it. But these are the versions that I used for my demo. Justin, probably will be a good idea to answer any questions before I switch to demo. So if you have any, please read to me and I'll try to answer those right now.
There's no questions in the queue quite yet.
Great. Okay, so we'll move on. So before I started this session, I've been prepping for almost an hour. I ran a lot of scripts because I did a lot of setup, and it's not possible for an hour. And I do not anticipate anyone sitting and watching these things getting set up. It will be a waste of your time, and I want to be respectful of your time. So, and all these are in GitHub already. I'll send the link to Jason after this. I'm sure Jason will share that. You can download, play with it, test it. You don't need my permission. Use it. If you run into anything, let me know. So if we go to my portal, they had a major issue this morning with the resource manager. I don't know what I'll run into, but hopefully things will run smooth. I hope so. But just so it affected many regions this morning. So this is one of my resource group, SQL Agent demo, and I have 2 servers. I have a bunch of these databases, and I also have a storage account got created. I have an automation account that I'll show you the runbook, and I also created a app service which has the function that I talked about. And I also created an Elastic Job Agent, and all of this got created by the scripts that you see here. I put enough comments in each of the steps, so when you run, you're not blindly running this. You can read about this and it will tell you what it is doing. So this one is totally ran. And one tip for you guys, if you want to be, if you want to stretch your money, I've been testing this a few times and running. I only spent $6 so far. I'll probably spend another $2 in next half an hour. Just a tip that if I have to delete all this, I'm just going to go and delete the resource group once I'm done, and everything will go away. So if you guys are testing, playing, always create a resource group, put your stuff there. When you're done, delete your resource group. That way you can stretch your money, whatever you have. It has nothing to do with what I'm showing, but just a tip for you guys. So the first one, what are you going to do? I'm connected to an on-prem server. So I'll connect to this. It's a SQL Server 2019 running on my laptop. And I'm going to create a table to collect some data from the cloud. So what I'm doing here, I'm creating a link server, but this link server is pointing to a server in a database in the cloud, right? This is the server, this is the database. And then what I'm going to do, I want to run this select statement, and it's just collecting the size of the Azure SQL database, but bring it on-prem, right? And you might not be thrilled about just collecting a database size after all this talk, but you can replace this piece of code with anything you want to do. You want to update stats, you want to purge data, whatever you want to do, you can replace it and it will do it for you. I'm just showing you the framework. You can take this, do whatever you need to do. So we did that. I'm hiding the password. I'm reading it from a JSON file. So now if we come here, server objects, link servers, as you can see that, we created this and we can get to the database and all this stuff. This is in cloud, pointing there. Now, once I run this, it's insert into statements means get this data inserted into my on-prem database, and this is the table name. We're done. Now we look at the result set, and we can see that it got the 3 different files, got all the sizes. This data is not important. Now, someone might say, okay, I don't want to bring this data on-prem. Can I save this data in the database itself in cloud. So what I'm doing, I'm connecting to my cloud database. So let's go there. And just so if you guys don't know, you cannot use a use statement yet, hopefully one day. So you always have to be in the right database context. And I'm creating the same table here because I'll collect the same data. Now this database, this table is in the Cloud AdventureWorks. But now I'm switching back to my on-prem and I'm saying insert into the, this is my link server, database, table name, same information that we collected before. But I'm not bringing to my on-prem now, I'm saving it right in the cloud database. We are done. We switch back to the cloud database. And again, we have to be in the right database context. We have the same data saved into the cloud database. Now, some of you might be already saying, gosh, I have hundreds of this Azure SQL database. Are you asking me that, I have to create this 100 times, I have to run this 100 times? No, that's not the, I'm trying to create a building block just to show you. So we did this. Now, I do not like this. So I have another set of PowerShell. If you see that I copied the same code and I have my local instance name, local database, and here I'm going against my resource group. I'm saying go to this resource group, find all the Azure SQL Server, loop through all Azure SQL Database, and collect the same information. Now, could I have gone one step higher to my management plane or to my subscription, right? So it's up to you, wherever you want to start from. And so you can walk from your management plane to your subscription, all resource group, all SQL Server, all SQL Database. I'm not going up there, but you can do that. And then I'm just going for each database, collect it and save it, right? So let's run this. And as you can see, it's collecting data, data from different servers and different databases. And how do we know that? So let's go to our on-prem table. And as you can see, I have an order by time, just so you guys can see the recent data came from that PowerShell, not what I was doing before. And now, as you see, we had only 3 rows. All this got just collected via this PowerShell code. So which is good. We are one step better. I do not have to have link server for everyone. I do not have to run those manually. I can loop through. Now, again, go back to our topic. Where is my SQL Server agent? I could schedule this and forget about it. But here I have to come here every time and I have to run it. So we are not there yet. And I briefly talked about task scheduler, which can save us in this case. So collect Azure, doesn't matter what the name is. If we look at properties, actions, so I'm calling my PowerShell.exe, and I am exactly calling the same PowerShell script that I was running here. I'm calling this script from the same location, but this time I'm using Windows Scheduler. So, and I have it scheduled to run at 11 a.m. every day. And you can schedule whatever time you want, right? So let's run this manually. see what happened. So task trigger, you should see that should be completed. Okay, still triggered. So let me go and see. So our last one was 1332. Okay, so as you can see, some new times, 35. So these were collected from here. Yeah, it's ready. So it finished, right? Task completed. And this one has pretty good history. If it fails, you can get log files and you can do whatnot. So at least now, so what we started from, just a single database from a link server running manually. Then we went to loop through using PowerShell, and now we can schedule those, right? So we are kind of mimicking SQL Server Agent. Justin, any question about this? Do you see anything before I move to the next one?
Nope, no questions in the queue yet.
Okay, great. So we'll move on. So the next one is we'll talk about runbooks. And to set up runbooks, again, I ran this code before you guys came online. Basically, these are all the variables that I declared, and this is an automation account. This is a credential that I'll be using, and I created a runbook which is empty. And as I said, there are different kind of runbooks, and I put it here. The type is PowerShell workflow, and I gave it a name. And we'll go to the portal now, and we'll look at it. And this is a separate service, as I mentioned before. And so if I go to my runbooks, right now I have one. As you can see, it's new. It's type. And as I was telling you, so you can always, even just using, just staying in this UI, you can do a bunch of things. You can create a runbook, you can edit, you can save, you can test everything from here. You do not have to go anywhere else. I like it. You can import a runbook. If someone sent you one, or if you wrote one, you can browse the gallery. And you can see here, you can select what you're looking for. There's a bunch of this that you can, you can upload to your account directly. So let's go here, and I can use, as you can see, I can edit, I can run manually, I can schedule this. You can do all this. So I go to edit, and as you can see, I do not have anything. And of course, I'm not going to type this when you guys are looking at me. I also have this up in the GitHub, so just just copy there, download it. So I'm just going to copy it from here, and then I'll try to walk you through what it's doing. And as I said, I want to give the credit, so you guys don't think like I wrote it all. I actually, this was written by Microsoft System Center Automation team, and I modified it. Last I modified is March 29. I didn't change it, so I literally took it from the gallery and I modified whatever I needed to do. So these are all the parameters. I'm collecting some information, looking at the fragmentation, and just for a demo purpose, I said, if the fragment percent is 20, go and rebuild it. But I'm absolutely not advocating to you guys that if you have 20% fragmentation, please go and rebuild it. This is just a demo. That's just an example. And you can be clever with it, right? I can pass on, different values. I can check, and I can do all this. So, but I'm just blindly saying, do this. And you can take this as a template, replace my T-SQL. It will do whatever you guys need to do. So let's look at this, in action. So, and I put some notes, if you guys are following along, if you want to see, what what is this doing? So we'll be connecting to, again, one of the Azure SQL server and then to Azure SQL Database. Demo target server. I'm just dropping this table, creating a table, creating a cluster index, and I'm going to do update just to mimic some fragmentation, as simple as that. Nothing fancy here. I have to be in the right database context. I gave the name test runbook, just so it's obvious. And it should give us about a 40% fragmentation, which will, yeah, so as you can see, it's 39.8. Now let's go here and let's save our code, go to test pan and click start. While it's running, I want to caution you one thing that I alluded at the beginning. This has a drawback. If you have something, as you can see, it says queued here and now it's starting. So you saw there's a delay, right? After I push the start button, and we can go to the log and see exactly how many seconds we were in the queue, because it was trying to reserve the compute resource, then it start computing, it starts running. So there's a delay and it's now completed. So if you have a workload, or if you have to do something that you say, I have to do this at this hour, minute, and second, this might not be the tool for you, just to keep that in mind. In my experience, there is very few times that I needed that kind of control, right? But if you have something, please look at it, see the delay. So far, I couldn't find a way. I do not think you can control that. So you have to get into a queue to running. In functions, which we'll talk about later, you can have pre-allocated compute that you'll be running right away. So I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of that. So let's go and see what happened now. As you can see, the fragmentation is now less than 1%, right? I'm not going to show you this, but you can schedule this runbook based on whatever time you need. And I want to show one more thing before I go from here. This is a credential that I used, and this is a shared resource. So as you can see, it says on the top it's shared. I can use all of these things once I create my certificates in multiple runbooks. So I do not have to create those every time. Okay, so I'll move on. The next one is Elastic Job Agent. So I ran this piece of code before you came online, and what that did, again, let me go to portal and show you. Because sometimes these things run slow, sometimes it runs in few seconds based on where I'm presenting from. So I always prefer to run this pre-hand, so you guys are not just just sitting there and waiting for me. So Elastic Job Agent, as you see here, and I do not have anything else right now. Now this ran against this database, and before I ran that piece of code, none of this existed. As I was showing you in my slide, these all created when I pushed this piece of code. So what I'm trying to say, if I go to a different Azure SQL database, go to program, store proc, I don't see any of this, right? You guys don't see those. But if you come to this one, these all got created, when I set up that service. It also did bunch of tables, but they're under the internals. And as some of the names are very obvious, as you can see, jobs, job steps data, job steps, execution history, and we'll use some of those. So those are done for us. I also did, I also set up some permissions because I didn't feel like you guys waiting to see all this, getting, setting up the login, adding those users to the inappropriate roles, using credentials and giving the credentials privilege. So I ran everything up to line 79. And I also put enough comment so you can follow through if you're doing this by yourself. So I'll start from here. So what we're going to do, we're going to connect to this demo server, and we're going to use job database. So, and I just gave it a name, so it's obvious. So my goal is to use this job database for job definitions and metadata, but I also have another database named DBA Warehouse. So I'll show you, I'll collect bunch of data using the jobs and I'll save it all from here. I'm sure most of you, if you're working in a big shop, you probably call it different things, but you probably have a DBA warehouse that you bring all your data, and then you do whatever you need to do. So let's move on. And I have this, I call this target server because I want to run some stuff against the database that are residing there. So in the job database, first thing I'm doing is I'm creating a target group. And my target group is, as you see, is this server. And if I do not say anything else, the jobs will run against all database except master in that server. So what I mean by that, if we go to the target, so it will run against all three, whatever I do. If I want to exclude, I can exclude a database when my target is a server. How to exclude a database? Just for interest of time, I put the code in comment. I'm not going to run this. If you need, you can always exclude one or more databases from the target server. Now I'm adding a job step, and the meat of this job is this command. So I'm not going to tell. So in Azure SQL Database, there is a DMV. It collects stats every 15 seconds. It keeps it for about an hour, right? So if you want to keep it for a longer time, you have to save it. It does some aggregation, and there is another DMV that it collects those, aggregates and collects for a longer period. So, but if you need the granular data, you have to collect this. And again, I'm not trying to tell you what you need to collect. It's more of, I have to pick something for the sake of the demo. So we set up the job. This is the job name. I gave it a description, and this is our job ID. Now, I put some code here. If you want to look into job steps, if you have multiple steps and you want to go into more details, you can also see the command, what credential and all that. So, there are a bunch of metadata that you can see. Now I'm going to start this job, and you can pass different things on your start job. And I can monitor what it's doing. So as you see, we just started one job, but you see it have multiple job steps, right? Because this is the master, and this is going against different databases, right? Because I showed you that I have more databases. So as you can see here, it's running against all three databases in parallel. We run it again, it says succeed. And now if I change the context to warehouse, we'll see that we collected data from those. As you can see, it's 49, so it's just got happened right now, right? So now I'm going to create another target group, and this time I have including a database, because as I told you, master database is not included by default, so I'm including it here. Sorry, I have to switch to the job database because that's where all my store procs and systems tables. Hopefully one day they will have the use database name. And again, I'm adding it. And what I did here, if you remember, we used it so many times before to collect the server database sizes. I actually brought that code, the same code here, and I'm setting up a job using that code. And now if I execute this, running the job, look at the execution details. They all ran very quick. And now if I go against the DBA warehouse, and you might not want to collect the output sometime, right? If you want to, you can. If you don't want, you might choose not to. So the same information that we were doing before. I also have another piece of code which I'm not going to run because you probably got the idea of what I'm doing. My target can be elastic pool. So if some of you don't know what is elastic pool, I can pre-allocate a certain size of compute, and then I can spin a bunch of databases into that resource pool. They'll all share that resource pool, and I can set up max, min, and this is good for two reasons. One is if you have development environments. Other one, if you have a company that's doing business all over the world, like 24/7. But if your business, say like, this is US daytime, if you're not having much business in Far East or in Asia right now, or in the Middle East, then you can put those in a elastic pool, and you can share the resources, right? I'm not going to talk about this in detail. So that's kind of concept. So I created a pool. You can have a target against a elastic pool, and the job is going to go and run against every resource in the elastic pool. So that's kind of the concept. I'm not going to go into details. You can test it there. The code is there. And a practical example of, I have it in a code. So, this code is going to do, it's going to give you all databases that are averaging at least 80% of compute utilization over the last 1 week, right? Because you might want to collect this and save it in a table, and maybe look at a graph or something. That way that maybe it's time to bump up to a different tier, or increase your DTU or whatnot, right? Um, uh, just to keep a tab on your uses. So the last one I want to talk about is a function app. So let's go back there. Again, as I said, this is a service by itself. And let me go, sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. Great. This UI changed recently. I think you can still go back to the classic ones, and you can use that. Yep. One thing I'll show you here, that what I did, I'm still not in the right place. Give me a minute. Got it. Okay. This is where I want it to be. Okay. So this is my app inside. You can still go back to the old UI if you want. One thing I want to show you is there's something called identity. So what you can do, you can set up a ID for your app inside, and what that does, as you can see this name, PaaS Azure demo, and what I did here, on this database that we're going to use, I created a, so this becomes a Azure Active Directory object, and I created a user, and I gave the user privilege to whatever my function is going to do. And I have a blog post. I didn't want to talk about promote my website here, but if you guys are setting this up took me a while to figure out this piece of code. Okay, yes, how to use managed identity with Azure Function App. So it took me a while. I could not figure out this 4-line of the code does all the magic here. The good part with this is I do not need to pass any credential here, because what it's going to do every time is going to go and get that token, and it's going to run using that token, which I already have a user created in my Azure SQL database, and gave it the privilege that I want to do whatever I want to do with my function. And in that way, I do not have to mess up with the password and my login and all that. I think this is a very neat way to do this. I just wanted to show you this. So let's go back. This UI changed recently, so it's getting me lost. Okay, so this is a function that I wrote here, and what this function will do, it's called SQL Agent demo, and I have the whole code is here. You can download, use it. Again, it's the same concept. What I did with the runbook, I am pretty much doing the same thing from here. I have a data source, but again, you can do that trick that I showed you before. Instead of going against one single server and a database, you can start at a higher level and you can loop through those and do whatever you want to do. You can change this command with whatever you want to do. So let's go back to that T-SQL that we used before in the runbook and create some fragmentation here. And instead of runbook, we're going to, so now it's 98% fragmented. Instead of runbook, we're going to use this function and see if we can get rid of that fragmentation. And I can also schedule this. See, here I'm running it manually, but you can run this at a schedule. If you are, if you're a C# developer, you can use C#. I think you can also use Python. But when you create your service or function apps, you have to say that, I'm going to use PowerShell. I cannot have other languages within this function app. Then if you want to use other, or if you have combination, you have to create a couple of different services. to use a different language. So it says it succeeded. Let's go back there and let's see what you see now. As you can see, from 98, it went to 0. So Jason, I'm going to switch back to my finishing slides. If someone has questions, I think this will be a good time to talk about or to take those.
All right. Cool. Yeah. So the first question we have here is, does Azure SQL Server Managed Instance support SSBQ? And I'm guessing that is SQL Server Broker queues.
I don't know, to be honest with you. If you send me a note, I know people that work with managed instance. In my company, there's a team, they're doing a large POC. I can definitely find out for you and I can let you know. I do not know the answer, I'm sorry.
Okay. And then the next question is what would be the usual use cases for Elastic database jobs?
Anything I showed you,
Yep.
if we are doing, anything you are doing today on-prem with SQL Server Agent jobs using T-SQL, you can mimic that same functionality using Elastic Job Agent. If you're doing anything with something else like PowerShell, C# code, you cannot mimic that because, like as I said, it does not support any other language other than T-SQL. So
Excellent.
I can
And
do
then,
stats update, I can do purging data, I can do look for blocks, look for long running jobs. Anything I can do with T-SQL, I can do it with that. Yeah, sorry, Jason, go ahead.
oh yeah, just the last one is somebody was asking if you could put your contact information back up.
Yes, I will put it back. Thank you. So just to wrap up, as you guys saw, multiple options. I showed you 5. I didn't talk about web jobs. It's still there. It's possible. One thing I didn't talk about with the runbook and the functions, what you can do, not just do stuff against there. You can set up alerts. You can have, you can trigger other things. So like a runbook can trigger a function, a runbook can trigger a webhook that will go and do other stuff. You can have alert right on, if you guys use Teams, Microsoft Teams, it can actually send you pop-up in your Teams that something is going wrong. So there's a lot of possibilities that I cannot show you within this 1 hour. There are hybrid models I talked about, there are multiple languages. So you need to know your limitations. What do you want to do? What are the limitations with the options that I showed you? And you need to make a decision that what is possible, what is not possible. Scalability is a big thing. Like I said at the beginning, nothing against link server, but if I have 1000 Azure SQL database, am I going to go create 1000 link server? How I'm going to loop through this, right? I'd rather just go to PowerShell, start at a higher level, and I'm just going to loop through and look at, Microsoft has a good thing. You can look at the resource type, asset type, and it will go through every asset and it will identify the asset you're looking for. So you can identify your Azure SQL database, Azure SQL Server asset, and you can do stuff. So, and be flexible, right? Microsoft evolving, as you know, every time, like this, this UI for this function app totally blew me off when I was testing this code yesterday. They just came up with a new UI. I kind of got lost finding my stuff. So there will be more changes, right? So be flexible. These are some of the stuff that I put that you guys can go and read more details. All of these are URL behind the scene. It will take you to a more detailed, stuff that you can read and play with. Again, my contact again, Twitter, I'm always there. LinkedIn, you can go to my blog website. There's a contact. It comes right to my inbox. You can email me directly there. I try to respond within 2 days max. So I know we are up by a few minutes. I will hang out here. I want to thank Jason for giving me the opportunity. I think I scheduled again within a couple of weeks. Hopefully you guys will join. And again, I'll send a link to Jason for you to download anything and everything that I showed you here. Unless there's any other question, I thank you all again for taking time. I know, and as I said at the beginning, times are hard for people. I appreciate you listening to me. If you didn't like any part of the presentation, please send me feedback. I wouldn't take it personally. I promise. That gives me a chance to improve myself.
Excellent. All right. Those are all questions. So thank you again for presenting today, and see you in a couple of weeks for your next presentation. And
Thank you all.
everyone have a great rest of your day.